What is the difference between the DELF and TCF or TF exam? Why we cannot just study DELF and then give TEF exam?
Well, that's a good question. Actually, the exams have a lot of differences in structure, syllabus, difficulty level. So, DELF exams are, there's not one exam, right? As you're aware, the exams are based on levels, right? Such as A1, A2, B1, B2 till C2 level, right? The reason why DELF exams are easier than TCF Canada or TEF Canada is that they are targeted exams. So if you're preparing for, let's say, DELF A2, right? So you can pretty much second guess what all you need to study. For example, for A2, you would need to know present tense, the past tense, simple future, and that's about that. Okay, this is just, I'm giving you example right now. I'm not going into the very specifics, but the syllabus for DELF A2 will be targeted syllabus. So you would know the upper limit. You would know the upper limit of the syllabus. That way you can only study this much. You're expected to know these many things. You can go and you can give the exam. It's pretty easy that way. I have given DELF exams. I have also given the Spanish equivalent of DELF, that is DELE. Rarely people fail these exams. DELF A1, A2, DELF B1. Rarely. Because as I said, the exam structure is such that it's not that difficult to crack. Specifically, if we talk about DELF B1 and B2, for the speaking test, a student gets 30 minutes of preparation time, half an hour. And in total, the student has to speak for about 15 minutes. It's divided into two parts, 5 to 7 minutes of monologue and then about 10 minutes of interaction with the examiner. But on an average, people speak for 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. And you basically get 30 minutes of preparation time for that. So I have seen students basically take these 30 minutes and prepare the monologue. Like they just write down everything in their rough sheet and they kind of reproduce that. I know that you're not allowed to read out from the paper, but that much amount of time you get to prepare. Whereas in contrast, if you look at TEF or even for that matter TCF Canada, for the speaking part you get 1 minute preparation time. For the speaking test, you get 1 minute preparation time and you have to speak for about 10 minutes on an average on that particular exercise. So you have two tasks in TEF Canada, and in TCF Canada you have three tasks. Okay, but either way you only get about 1 minute of preparation time to speak for 10 minutes or to have a conversation of 10 minutes with the examiner. In that 1 minute you get an advertisement. So basically you have to scan the advertisement, understand the contents of the advertisement, and then prepare something, and then like basically that 1 minute just goes away while you are looking at advertisement. So that's how much more difficult TEF and TCF Canada is as compared to DELF B1 and B2. That way it's pretty easy. Also for B1 level, the audios for the listening test, you can listen to the audios two times. For every audio you can listen two times, and then they're fairly easy. So in a nutshell, DELF exam is much easier to pass. It's very, very difficult. In other words, it's very, very difficult to fail in DELF exams unless you do extremely poorly. Now when it comes to TEF or TCF Canada, both exams are quite similar in structure. There are differences, and probably we'll talk about these differences in another session, and we will point out the exact differences between these two exams. But in general, these exams are quite difficult to get a good score. I'll tell you reason. First of all, there's no fixed syllabus. So you don't have TEF Canada for A1 or TEF Canada for A2 level or B1 level. There's just one exam. Good comparison would be the IELTS exam. So in the IELTS test, in any of the module, either speaking, listening, you have questions for A1 level, you have some questions for A2, some questions for B1, C1, and all those levels are there. The exam is designed to measure your actual level of French. So you're not trying to reach certain level and limit yourself to that level. Whatever your actual level is, that will be found out via this exam. So that way they are very tough. Just imagine IELTS, and that's all you need to know, right? I mean, a lot of us face a lot of difficulties in scoring CLB 9 or CLB 10 in IELTS, right? Similar level of difficulty will be there in these two tests. Again, when you compare this with DELF, definitely they are much more difficult to crack. Now, caveat is, if you are trying to get A2 level score in TEF, of course that is easy, right? Pretty similar to that of DELF, even though it is much more difficult than passing DELF A2. But what are we majorly talking about is getting CLB 7 level score in TEF or TCF, which is quite difficult, right? As compared to, let's say, passing DELF B2, which is equivalent level B2 and CLB 7. But to pass DELF B2 will be much more easier than getting CLB 7 score in TEF or TCF for that matter. Just to give you a measure of difficulty, as we spoke about DELF B1 or DELF B2, you get about 10 minutes of preparation time in a speaking test of 10 minutes, right? Whereas in TEF Canada, you get at max 1 minute preparation time for the exam speaking test, and you have to speak for 10 minutes. Like, that is a conversation, it's not a monologue, but 1 minute preparation time, and you have to maintain conversation in French for 10 minutes. So you can understand the difficulty. So it's like, again, the writing test is more difficult than DELF. If somebody has passed DELF B2 or DELF B1, that definitely doesn't mean that they can translate this score to B2 or B1 level score in TEF or TCF for that matter. That is highly unlikely.
Okay, but the thing is that I just finished my B2 course from a reputed French institute. So, how long it will take to obtain CLB 7 in TEF exam?
Again, if you have completed, let's say, B2 level program from an institute, but this, how do you calculate this B2 level is very important, right? A lot of times students come to us saying that I have just recently finished a B1 level course from some Alliance Institute or something like that, B2, B1. The issue is that just because you have done that course from some institute doesn't necessarily mean that you have that level in French. Okay. And then people say that, no, but I passed the exam, so I must have the level. That's not necessarily true, because at the end of the day, for many of these institutes, it's also a business. So they have to promote people from one level to another. So just because you pass that exam, final exam in that course, doesn't mean you have that level. I would say better way to measure your level is that if you think that you have B1 level in French, you should be able to hold a conversation in French for 5 to 7 minutes. A conversation for 5 to 7 minutes. Similarly, if you have B1 level in French, you should be easily able to write 200 words letter, okay, or let's say dissertation in French easily. What I mean by easily is that any time of the day, if I ask you to write a 200-word letter in French, you should be able to write it with a decent quality. At the same time, if you were to engage in a conversation, you should be able to maintain the conversation for 5 to 7 minutes without any problems, with a desirable level of fluency. That is the real way you can understand if you have the B1 level or not, rather than, I just completed a course, B1 course from some institute. That's not a good, reliable measure of your level. Similarly, if you talk about B2, I would say this criteria has changed. So instead of 5 to 7 minutes, you should be able to maintain the conversation in French for 7 to 10 minutes while speaking. And when it comes to writing, you should be able to write up to 300 words, essays or letters in French with a desirable amount of quality. Again, one more thing is that if you claim or if you think that you have B2 or B1 level, you should know almost all the major grammar constructs of French, like all the tenses, all the pronouns, all the conjunctions, all the prepositions, and a sizable chunk of French vocabulary. And that vocabulary is basically, can you maintain a conversation or can you write the letters of desirable quality? That will tell us whether you have the vocab or not. Again, we don't mention about reading and listening, because reading and listening are more like, you can do some logical processing or analytical thinking and you can get extra score in reading and listening. Okay, but you cannot fake your level in speaking and writing. You said you had just finished which course?
B2.
B2 level course. So again, first thing you have to do is you have to think about this criteria. Are you comfortable with these two criteria? If yes, then I would say you can definitely attempt the TEF or TCF Canada exam, and you should get CLB 7 or around some score like that.
Yeah, okay.